If you're marketing to the LGBTQ plus community, you can't take a one size fits all approach. We all need different kinds and levels of support in our journey, and how you speak to us has to be a little bit different. It's an important reminder of how diverse and expansive this community is. And that's something we're learning all the time at OkCupid.
Hi, I'm Jason Harris, and you're listening to Soul and Science. Fast forward your marketing mind in about 20 minutes. In celebration of Pride Month, we're taking some time to focus on brands that both address and uplift the LGBTQ plus community. And maybe the most inclusive dating app out there is OkCupid. Today, I'm talking with Kaye, the Director of Brand Marketing and Communications at OkCupid, and Now Archer, which you'll learn about in a bit, both under the Match Group umbrella. Michael leads communications, influencer marketing, and social media. And since being there, he has secured more press for the brand than any other year since it launched in 2004. And he even got OkCupid data mentioned in a White House press briefing. Michael is a true dating app success story. And in this episode, you'll learn that when marketing in the LGBTQ plus community, there's no room for one size fits all approach. You need a strategy as diverse as your customer base. You'll hear how effective storytelling is at the heart of OkCupid's success. And you'll learn that leading into taboo or controversial topics rather than avoiding them shows customers you're the real deal. All right, let's dive in and start to fast forward our marketing minds. Michael, I want to know your origin story and how you got into marketing. And then from there, fall into the dating app world of marketing. How did you get to where you are today?
Well, I can talk about my origin story without talking about my parents, who are going to be listening to this. And they are actually my grandparents that decided to start their parenting journey all over again and raise their first grandchild. So they are the ones who put me through 17 years of education, encouraged me at every point of my career, continue to be my greatest support system. And they're actually the ones who told me in high school that I'll end up in marketing. So my origin story is thanks to them. And obviously being a teenager, hearing that, I tried to pursue anything but marketing. I was really interested in journalism. I explored majoring in business, English, journalism, you name it, in college, and landed on communications. And then I actually began my career agency side working at Weber Shandwick, Reuter Finn, and Edelman before moving in-house to Match Group. I've also been teaching college courses since 2018, first at Mercy College, now at New York University, and later this year I'm joining the faculty at the University of Massachusetts. So my career began in communications, but has slowly evolved, and I've landed in a more integrated role spanning both communications and marketing.
And do you find that because of your background, when you think of marketing, do you first think of communications and PR before you think of, advertising or spending money? Do you think of earned first?
I really take a step back and I think of storytelling across everything, whether that's PR or marketing or social or influencer. And actually, when I was working at Edelman, I remember they ingrained in us this social first approach. So Edelman's approach to PR was really thinking about what type of story is going to drive significant, impactful marketing results as well. And I've adapted and kept that thought process.
I want to touch on your grandparents because you brought that up, and I find that fascinating. Why do you think they were like, you're cut out for marketing? Were they marketers themselves? You loved brands as a kid, or what do you think made them make that comment?
Well, I loved writing as a child. I loved art. I always took multiple types of art lessons, from oil painting to computer graphics. And this is embarrassing and actually really nerdy, but all throughout middle school, my passion project was creating Microsoft PowerPoints. So I would put together PowerPoints on shows I like, celebrities, different things, and would make my parents come into our home office and sit as I presented my little PowerPoint. So it's ironic that so much of my time now is spent making decks.
And now what do you use? Google Docs?
Yeah, Google Slides.
What is your favorite aspect of your job?
Probably hearing from our actual users, because that reminds me of the impact the product teams are having and the marketing team is having and everybody under the OkCupid umbrella. So on my desk at work, I actually keep wedding invitations from OkCupid success stories. And if I'm having a bad day, I will look at those invitations or those photos, and it reminds me that sure, this has been a long week or a tough month, but the work we're doing here results in engagements and marriages and children and families or whatever people are turning to OkCupid for.
I love that. When you think about the most important projects you've done at OkCupid, what's one or two that stand out?
Definitely our I'm vaccinated profile badge. That was a really fun one that happened at the beginning of the pandemic. So, to support the White House's efforts to increase vaccinations among Gen Z and millennials, we released the I'm vaccinated profile badge to all our daters who self reported that they had at least one dose of the vaccine. And it got incredible press, but the highlight of this entire campaign or announcement was hearing OkCupid data mentioned in a White House press briefing and watching Fauci giggle in the background that the White House was talking about different dating apps and dating trends. So that was a fun one. And another one was our Every Single Person campaign, which OkCupid created with Mekanism. Um, that brand campaign, for anyone who doesn't know, embraced all singles everywhere, no matter whom you're interested in or what you're looking for or what matters to you. But what excited me most was that it featured non-binary models, pansexuals, interracial couples, and it truly did celebrate all the people and types of relationships that we see on OkCupid. So that was a really proud moment for all of us internally.
Yeah, that was a great campaign. We were really glad to be part of it. Did you know about before you started at Match? Did you know a lot about dating apps in general and the industry, or was the job there and then you started to learn about it?
Don't tell anyone this, but honestly, dating apps were not top of mind for me. I didn't know much about OkCupid, but it's not because I don't believe in our products. It's because I'm an incredible success story from our products. So I was closeted for over 20 years, and dating apps were the only way for me to connect with other gay men when I graduated college. And the only gay dating apps available to me reinforced the idea that queer love and connection should be secretive and hidden, which is why I actually turned to Tinder. That was one of the first dating apps I ever heard of. And that's how I went on my first date with a man. And 9 years later, I am still dating that specific man. What's kept me at OkCupid and Match Group is the impact our products have on people's lives and the encouragement and support OkCupid gives me. The brand's mission and values are also so closely aligned with my own. And it's the first company where I feel I can bring my truest self to work. So I would say I actually fell in love with the brand during the interview process.
One date on Tinder, and you're still partnered up 9 years later.
Yeah, so we have to get Melissa to pay for my wedding.
Oh my God, that's an amazing story. So Melissa Hobley is now the CMO of Tinder, part of Match, and she did play that role. She was on the podcast for our first episode, and she was at OkCupid. Now she's at Tinder. So this episode is going to be part of our Pride Month series. Do you have any insights on talking to the LGBTQ community? And, you know, a lot of apps try to target that group. Some apps obviously are specialized just for that community. Do you have any insights that you can share on particularly how that community reacts to dating apps or different ways that you can think about marketing?
Yes. Well, first, I want to thank you for this question because actually, what I love about this question is it doesn't assume that just because I am part of the LGBTQ plus community that I am an expert on queer history and identities. I'm learning a lot every single day. So there's been a lot that I've learned about my community in this role and through spending over 5 years volunteering with the Human Rights Campaign and now working with GLAD. And one thing I've learned that we should all keep in mind as marketers, as comms leaders, as brands, is that the journey to finding out our identity and afterwards is really different for every single person. As a cisgender gay man, my challenges and concerns are very different from other queer people. So, for example, bisexual people face skepticism and stereotypes about their sexuality. And non binary and transgender people have their own unique challenges. So, if you're marketing to the LGBTQ plus community, you can't take a one size fits all approach. We all need different kinds and levels of support in our journey, and how you speak to us has to be a little bit different. And it's an important reminder of how diverse and expansive this community is. And that's something we're learning all the time at OkCupid and with some of our other apps as well.
Do you try to go for the broadest message that will be the most inclusive possible, or do you think about segmenting it out with, particular messages more targeted in a targeted way?
It's a mix of both. You have to have that overarching message that's going to speak to everyone within the LGBTQ plus umbrella. But if you think about dating apps specifically, how lesbians date is going to be very different than how gay people date. Gay people date in a way that's a little bit more fluid. You might see more open relationships amongst gay men. If you're targeting bisexual people, they are dating very differently than those other two categories I mentioned. So, it definitely has to be a mix of both. I'm a fan of making sure that you do have messaging that hyper targets different sub communities within this community.
There'll be a lot of marketing this month around speaking to this community because it's a vibrant, growing community that brands want to connect with. Are there a lot of mistakes you see that brands make?
Yes. Uh, Externally, cisgender gay men cannot be the default when marketers consider inclusive creative. The queer community includes all kinds of body types, ethnicities, identities, and races. Internally, when you're looking at your teams, do not place the burden on queer employees to be the spokesperson for all subcommunities under the LGBTQ plus umbrella. It could be really exhausting. And to be quite honest, I do not feel like I should be speaking to the non binary experience or the transgender experience. I'm really lucky though, because Match Group has continuously supported me and my community by providing me with funding and resources to bring in partner organizations, including GLAD and the Human Rights Campaign. I think brands get so nervous and feel as as if they need to know everything and they have to do everything right. But there are people out there who are the actual experts. All you have to do is invite them into the room and give them a seat at the table, and they are more than happy to support you. And then, without naming any brands, we're seeing a lot of this right now. When you choose to include the LGBTQ plus community in your marketing campaigns, do not give in to anti-LGBTQ plus activists who taint the movement. So if you're going to commit to us, commit.
I remember during our campaign on the New York subway system and in Chicago and some other cities as well, some of the work got banned and people were ripping them down. When you're internal in a brand and that's happening, Do people panic? Are they saying, that's bad for the brand because it's causing such a reaction that we maybe aren't looking for? Take us through what that was like at OkCupid when people are ripping down your advertising.
There was no panic internally. I would say for us, we just realized the people who are going to be offended or upset about what we put out there as a brand are not the people that we want on our app to begin with. And what we did see were increases in LGBTQ plus people downloading and registering on OkCupid. So that was a huge win for us. We've had campaigns bashed on Fox News. Again, we just laugh about it.
All right. It sounds like it actually has the opposite effect where it creates more brand affinity for the audience you're targeting.
Absolutely. And you have to look at who's attempting to make the most noise. They fall really far outside of our target demographic. Gen Z and millennials are the most progressive generations yet. So, as long as we are aligning with their values and their beliefs, and it's something that feels true to who OkCupid is as well, we're still winning. You can make as much noise as you want on a subway or Twitter, but you were never going to be the ones to come to OkCupid to begin with.
We mentioned in your bio something that I've not heard of, which is Archer.
Yes, absolutely. So this is a really exciting announcement that we just made. So Archer is a social first dating app for gay, bisexual, and queer men that offers multiple discovery modes from grid views to a linear layout, all with mandatory selfie verified profile photos. So we're prioritizing safety and security and innovation and a celebratory feel from day one. And it's Match Group's first LGBTQ specific app. And I get to oversee the brand's marketing, PR, and social media. So it's been an exciting journey, one that we've been working on since summer of last year. And the first time I actually heard about it was January of 2022. So it's been a long time coming.
Why do you find that there's space for this particular app? What is it? How is this different than anything on the market currently?
Queer men don't just turn to dating apps for finding a hookup or a relationship. They're turning to these apps for many different reasons, for building community, for finding their chosen family. And Archer makes it really easy for you to do all of that in one area. So, yes, there's going to be people hooking up on Archer and people getting into relationships on Archer, but there are also many features that you'll find on social media apps as well. So you'll be able to upload ephemeral content. You can add stories and photos. You'll be able to go live. There's also community building features like group chats and many more innovative features coming down the line for the rest of the year. So it is a very different app than what we've seen created for this community.
That sounds awesome. It sounds like it's going to be huge.
Yeah, we're really excited about it. It's so different to work on a legacy brand that's been around for almost 20 years and then completely change to working on a startup. It's a very different mindset.
Are there any insights when you and the team were working on building this app that surprised you?
When we started speaking with queer men, we realized how badly they needed an app like Archer. And when we built our group of community advocates, which is a smaller group of queer men in New York City, we heard a collective sigh of relief that a new kind of app is coming. And we did a lot of research. We surveyed over 1,000 queer men, and there were over 200 queer men who participated in our beta program this spring. And what we learned, which was really interesting to me, and I alluded to a little bit earlier, is that how queer men date and what they want from a dating app really is fluid. They use these dating apps and social media apps to hook up, to date, to find friends, communities, discover their chosen family. So we're making it easier for you to do all of that on one app. So in a heterosexual relationship, when you're exclusive, you're going to get off these apps. But it's not uncommon for even people in monogamous relationships within the gay or queer community to stay on these apps and find friends, or when they're traveling to new cities or moving to new cities to turn to these apps to find other people to hang out with or ask recommendations on anything. So we wanted to build an app that could serve queer men at every stage of their life.
That's really interesting insight because it's not the idea isn't to delete the app. That sounds very, very different. If you were to leave Match Group and go somewhere, what would be some interesting things that you learned from your experience marketing dating apps that you think could apply to any brand you worked on?
This is a thought process that I would bring, which I actually learned from Sonia Oblite, who is our senior director of global marketing at OkCupid. And one thing she always says, and she challenges our agencies when they present ideas, is how ownable is this to OkCupid before they even present? If you're about to share an idea, a concept, an event, a partnership, a campaign, whatever it is, that we can put Hinge's name on, or Tinder's name on, or Match.com's name on, we don't want it. It needs to feel completely ownable to the brand. And that is a lesson that has really stuck with me throughout my time at Match Group. And I will never leave. But if I were to leave and go to another brand, that's how I would think about any of the marketing, any of the communications, anything that we were doing is this truly ownable to this brand?
And I think from the agency perspective, I think that's very good. And we lose sight in that sometimes because you think about a good idea as a good idea, but it really has to match the brand.
Yes. And it's the onus is also really on the brands to make sure that their agency partners are looped into these conversations, that they feel close to the business. I know when I was on the agency side, I felt really far removed from the business. And all I really had insight to is the goals or KPIs of the comms team. So with any agency partners that I have at Archer or OkCupid, I want to make sure that our partners feel like they have a seat at the table, that they're hearing all the information we're hearing as well.
In your marketing efforts, do you rely more on solar science? Because it's a lot of research you guys do. So there's a lot of data and insights. How do you balance in your marketing efforts between the soul and science and your head or your heart in terms of marketing?
I need to feel that the idea is right in my gut, but my brain, especially being at a data-driven brand like OkCupid, my brain needs the data and insights for support. So I think it's definitely a combination of both. It's also making sure that different voices are part of the discussion. I know for any campaigns that we work on, we're making sure that experts and nonprofit organizations are weighing in as well, because they're going to look at it from a very different lens than we do as marketers.
In your career, what is an unpopular but important decision you made? Something that people weren't sure it was a good idea, but you stuck to your guns and you're like, I know this is going to work, or it's an important thing to try.
Yes. Well, people are not going to be surprised by this, but OkCupid does not shy away from controversial or taboo topics. We actually lean into them, and those unpopular decisions really worked. So for OkCupid's Right to Love badge with the ACLU, we saw the highest growth in female registrations in 10 weeks, the weekend the badge launched. This happened years ago. And then we continue to see growth overall across all genders and orientations. For our I Stand with PP badge to support Planned Parenthood, we experienced a 20% increase in Instagram followers. People who added OkCupid's Black Lives Matters badge were 10% more active on our app than people without the badge. During our VILF campaign to encourage voter turnout, we experienced a 60% increase in brand mentions on Instagram. So we're seeing that woke companies don't necessarily go broke.
Woke won't go broke. I like that. Standing up for something, even in uncertain times when you're not sure if the reaction that it's going to have for the user base, but it's a principle-based company. Through your life, what are some key role models you've had?
My dad is always going to be my main role model. He created a small business. He owned a painting company that supported 2 generations, and he's always pushed me to do my best and show up as my truest self. So my dad is always going to be my main role model. Elaine Welteroth is someone else who I look up to. Her career has evolved from print to digital to broadcast. So I love her adaptability. And then Melissa Hobley, who we know is the CMO at Tinder. She's my former manager at OkCupid. She's an incredible LGBTQ plus ally, and she really is the driving force behind the integrated path my career has taken. So I owe a lot to Melissa.
I love that. Does Michael Kaye have a favorite quote or mantra?
I'm going to steal someone else's. Brian Chesky, the CEO at Airbnb, had someone tell him they said, focus on 100 people that love you rather than getting 1 million people to kind of like you. And that's a conversation we have a lot on the marketing team. We're constantly analyzing and evaluating our marketing approach to make sure we're not trying to be everything to everyone all the time, because then you risk losing your brand identity, your personality, who you are, because you become nothing to a lot of people.
Yeah, that's the way you become a wallpaper brand that people don't care if it survives or not. Is you try to be all things to all people, and that doesn't work.
It doesn't.
What is an outstanding life goal that you want to accomplish?
To publish a book on what I've learned throughout my career later on to help the next generation, which I can then dedicate to my parents.
I love that. What is one word that describes your business style?
I would say adaptable, because I have worked in boutique, mid-size, and large firms. I've worked at agencies and in-house on teams of more than 10 people and teams of 1, alongside Gen Z, millennials, and Gen X for established and legacy brands, and now a startup, and remotely during a pandemic. So adaptable.
Adaptable. All right. Well, thanks for being on the podcast. I think you're really inspirational, I think, in your career, what you've done. And I think also working on OkCupid and Archer, you get to work in business that is, making money, but it also is, in a way, it's social good because it's connecting people, which is something we desperately need today. So you're kind of doing both skills in your career and your job. So kudos to you, and thanks for being on the podcast.
Thanks again for having me.
Soul and Science is a Mekanism podcast produced by Maggie Bowles, Ryan Tillotson, Tyler Nielsen, Emma Swanson, and Lily Jablonski. The show is edited by Daniel Ferreira with theme music by Kyle Merritt. And I'm your host, Jason Harris.